Wow. I mean, if there was ever a time to lay an egg, this was not the time. When the world is watching, listen, the company that owns the rights to Major League Soccer has global rights. So unless you want to watch Messi, you have to buy those rights. If you want to watch Messi, you have to buy those rights. So sometimes they don't get to see him. So when do they get to see him? When does the rest of the world get to see Messi? Well, in these international competitions. I thought it was unfortunate. I thought it was unfortunate on so many levels. The play, and we'll get into it, the superstars who were aging before our very eyes, the opponent, etc. I thought it was a very unfortunate night for Inter Miami.
Can I use a different word, maybe slightly harsher here, Herc? I think it was embarrassing, and I think it was embarrassing on multiple levels. There were a couple moments that I thought must have just cut through the ego of Inter Miami. One was the moment in the second half. It was actually about a 5-minute stretch where you could just hear the ole, ole, ole raining down, and it felt like a possession drill. It looked like Inter Miami at that point had kind of checked out of the game. The other moment of sheer humiliation is that this referee, who did have a shocker, he didn't even let it play to the full 90 minutes. He blew the whistle at like 89:56. He was like, stop the count. Inter Miami are done. This, Herc, is a total humiliation. And you could see the frustration coming through from these guys. Jordi Alba getting sent off. Luis Suarez with that nasty play in the first half. Even Messi, Herc, looked frustrated. There was one tackle where he didn't even get a yellow, and I thought you could have made maybe a case for a red, right? It was that late. The defense for Inter Miami, pathetic. Horrible. We kind of expected that against a quality attack like Rayados. What we didn't expect here is what happened to Inter Miami's attack. 60% possession, and they had one shot on target with Lionel Messi running the attack. And Herc, the reason I was so confident in Inter Miami is because they had Messi. I thought he would make the difference. In this game, and I don't know if it's down to him or if it was something that Rayados did, but he did not produce what Inter Miami needed down a goal going to Mexico in the second leg.
All right, so the question is if I'm surprised that Inter Miami didn't do well. Would I be surprised at a team that has Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Luis Suarez, and yeah, that guy Messi, the best ever, couldn't muster more than one shot on goal in a game that they needed multiple goals in against this opponent? And when I speak about this opponent, Rayados may be a star-studded roster, but if there's one team in Mexico that fails you down, that like just lets you down, fails, and especially at home in the most crucial of moments, it's this team. It's this team, Rayados. The platform was set. It was a perfect scenario for Messi, who was healthy, and they poked the bear, and this Inter Miami to react. And they didn't. And then, well, thinking about Tata Martino, where does he fall into this? Who's he going to pick off the bench? Like, I'm looking at this game, I'm looking at a team that looks slow with guys like Messi and Suarez on the field. For the first time, I'm thinking they look their age. For the first time, I'm thinking this is what I thought it was supposed to look like since the inception. And now it's going on for the world to see. I'm surprised that it happened that way. I'm not surprised that Rayados won. I mean, they had a 2-1 advantage, and they're the better roster. I'm surprised that they won, and it looked like that.
I keep hearing all this talk about rosters, and very specifically depth. And you mentioned it, right? You're saying the bench. And a lot of people around MLS, including Tata Martino and Julian Gressel, were very quick with the bench roster depth excuse after this defeat. Here's the thing, Herc. Why are we focused on players 13, 14, 15, and 16 and the advantage that Rayados might have there for guys who are on the field for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we're not talking about the first best player, the second best player, the third best player, and the fourth best player on the field last night, all belonging to Inter Miami. You can't focus on guys that are hardly playing in these games and be like, that's why we're losing. Inter Miami had the greatest player of all time. And
is he still the greatest player? Is he the best player right now?
The four of those guys right now are the likes of which something CONCACAF Champions Cup has never, ever seen.
Fine,
you can't focus on depth and not talk about the
Did
starting
they
11.
Look like
the
those
starting
players
11
last night?
Is what wins
Did
and
they
loses
look
games.
like those players last night? I'm asking you.
They look like they've looked for the last few months with this team.
They looked old. They looked like they didn't belong on the field. And here it is, Seb. They're focusing on depth. You want to know why? Because of depth, that they're talking about was on the field on display. Noah Allen is a 19-year-old playing as a left center back. One, not a center back. Two, he's a teenager. He doesn't have that much experience. That's the depth they're talking about. You look at Rayados, that's depth. There are two players for every position. Literally two players for every position. You talk about Messi, you talk about Jordi Alba, you talk about Luis Suarez, fine. At their ceiling, their best moment at this age, yes. Did they look at last night? Because Tata Martino also said something that I've been saying for a long time, maybe a decade, okay? When you talk about players who can play for Major League Soccer and compete here, they can compete. But when you gotta dig into that bench, you better hope that those players that can compete or you think can compete don't have a run of form, an injury, a suspension, or just an off night, Seb. Because if that happens, you are done. You are going into the Raptors and looking for somebody to play. A Noah Allen, who maybe isn't ready for a moment. You are really stressed for talent, and we saw that. How slow did this team look? When the Rayados goes into the bench, they go into the bench. When they pull somebody out, they pull out somebody who's gonna change a game. Who on that bench? And by the way, I agree with you. Does it sound like an excuse? Yes. You wanna know why? Because it's still an excuse. Yes, but it's the truth.
So you think specifically Messi's performance last night is more down to legs than anything Rayados did? Because I'll tell you, even early in the game, Herc, he looked off to me, not just what he was doing, but where he was. He was like 20, 30 yards from his own goal. You want Messi as close as possible to your rival's goal. And within the 20, 25 minute mark, it was very clear that he knew if he wanted to get the ball, he was going to have to check back deep into his own half. And I don't think that's what Tata Martino and company would have drawn up.
I mean, we talk about putting legs next to Sergio Busquets. You're going to have to put some legs around Messi, because with his brain, he's going to beat everybody. With that left foot, he's going to beat everybody. But it was evident last night when he wanted to push the ball past Gerardo Arteaga with speed, it wasn't there. That's not him anymore. But you give him people that can open space up where he can beat somebody off the dribble and doesn't have to be at pace. A little shimmy here, a feint there to get an angle to create something. That's where he can be effective for you. But if you got a Luis Suarez who is also struggling physically, if you got a Jordi Alba who's also struggling physically, you have a Sergio Busquets who is struggling physically, who is dynamic for you? Who is helping these players? Who are helping Messi? And that's the problem. We talk about Messi for the first time in probably my lifetime, he looked human. And I can't even say he played bad. He was just okay. But in Messi's standard, that's not good. Him looking human, that's not Messi. And that's what it looked like last night. I saw a guy, the all-time great, look like he was aging right before our eyes.
Yeah, if Messi had played both of these games before last night, I would have said, oh, Inter Miami definitely wins. But if he actually would have played the first leg as he played last night, I don't necessarily think Inter Miami would have won. The other thing that was big last night, and that we haven't really seen here in the United States when it comes to Lionel Messi, is how he was greeted by that Rayados crowd. Boy, they were giving it to him from the very, very first minute of the game. Clearly, Herc, very focused on Messi. None of the love that he gets when he travels around the United States from opposing fans.
Yeah, and that's been a massive topic of discussion down south in our ESPN Deportes world. It's been, did they cross the line? No, listen, as long as they're respectful in the way where they're booing him and they're jeering him, that's fine. Nobody's assaulting him. This is what you want to do. You want to make your home field a fortress, have a home field advantage. You don't want to make a player with that capacity feel good in your own house, and he didn't feel good. They could say what they want. I saw a Messi that was a little bit irritated. He was taking some shots at Gerardo Arteaga, jawing off with Gerardo Arteaga. The tackle you mentioned that he had on Luis Romo, it's uncharacteristic of Messi. We've seen angry Messi before. I don't think I've ever seen a Messi. It looked like the first time Orlando got under his skin in Leagues Cup. It looked like that type of Messi. I don't know if you want to always poke the bear, but it worked for Monterrey last night.
Quickly, Herc, here. If we go big picture, how significant do you think this defeat is to kind of your perception of the Inter Miami project? I would say this. I still have them as my MLS Cup favorites, but I am less confident having seen what Rayados just did to them. I know Rayados not going to be in MLS Cup playoffs, but there will be some quality teams there that can probably take advantage of a defense that bad.
So, reality check, It was for me because I gave them a chance in tournament settings in these 7 games where they can win a trophy. That's where I had Messi and Inter Miami really making their impact, and the legs weren't there in these 7-game series. Will they be there after Copa America for the likes of Messi and company? I don't think so. The dog days of summer are long in Major League Soccer, and maybe they'll get to the playoffs in good shape, but what kind of shape will their stars be in? We've seen this before where there's a string of games he's injured and it takes him a while to get back into that shape. So it really comes down to who they can put around Messi to help them physically. This is a reality check, man. Listen, I mentioned earlier how the world was watching. I think this is a wake-up call for the owners. When the rest of the world is watching, when all of a sudden they're looking at Messi and where he's playing in this tournament abroad, if they are paying attention, they're looking at a Messi who looked dated, a Messi who looked like he was irritated, a Messi who looked like he wasn't having fun. Nobody wants to see an all-time great look this way. I think this is a wake-up call for the owners, Major League Soccer owners. I think they're going to see what happened, how embarrassing it was for the league, and they're going to make some changes. Maybe not wholesale changes where we're going to see more DP spots off the bat, but things are going to be cooking because they're out of the Club World Cup right now. But we know that there is a spot that FIFA will give to the host country. All eyes point to it being Messi and Inter Miami. Why? Nobody's stupid here. We're not going to try to deceive people. Nobody's naive enough to think that FIFA doesn't want Messi there. If he is to go there, you need to supply a team, Inter Miami, that is competitive. Because if Rayados and Monterrey, a CONCACAF opponent, did this to Messi, what do you think the big dogs in Europe are going to do?
Got to get something out of this season, huh? I don't know if you remember when we were down in Fort Lauderdale for the first practice of the year, we were talking with some local journalists down there. You know, what matters? What's a success this year? It was MLS Cup and or CONCACAF Champions Cup. I put CONCACAF ahead of MLS Cup. That's out the window now. So at this point, if you're Inter Miami, all you're left with that really, really matters is MLS Cup. You pretty much, damn near, got to go out and win it, or else we're going to be saying some pretty harsh things about this team come the end of the MLS season.